Welcome to the Second Bite Podcast, where we talk with top entrepreneurs and CEOs about creating valuable companies through creative transactions. Now, let's get started with the show.
Welcome back to the Second Bite Podcast. We have a tremendous episode today and a wonderful guest. Eric Ashworth is with me, the CEO of Agital. Eric, super happy you're here.
Thanks, Todd. Super happy to be here.
Yeah, man, this is going to be a little bit different from kind of the founder story or the part that we're going to engage you with. I know you founded an agency long ago. So it's going to be a little bit of a unique take that we're going to jump into. I want to start by thanking our sponsors, the people at Tower Partners in Columbia, Maryland. Tower, I'm a partner there now. Tower does really great transactions for founder and family-owned businesses. So thank you to the good folks at Tower for sponsoring our efforts here. Eric, you are CEO of Agital. We're going to unpack your history, but let's just start with Agital. Who are they? What do you do? And who do you do it for?
Agital's become an agency collective that helps businesses, mainly SMB to mid-market, and we have been looking at lower enterprise, bring their brands to life, get the right interest, and elicit the behaviors from audiences that they want to elicit. So we help people market their brands, and we help them connect with current consumers or customers and new customers. Industry verticals, again, it's market size, SMB to mid-market. Mid-market's becoming more of a focus with a little bit of lower enterprise. And we're pretty much across the board from a category perspective. We've got healthcare, we've got municipalities, a smattering of CPGs. But we feel like we're well positioned to help customers that want to work across kind of the marketing spectrum. And like any good marketing organization, have a heavy digital focus.
So the thing that's going to be interesting, and I'm excited to unpack this together, a lot of times when I have a guest, we talk about them founding an agency, growing an agency, doing a transaction, focus on the second bite. And that's not your story per se. We'll get into your early history, which is when you built and sold an agency. But you were president of SGK. You ran a big business for Rise. Or you acquired Rise and grew that
at Quad, yeah.
At Quad, which is a public business.
Yep.
So give us just a quick history, because you started out at Levi's as a brand manager or an analyst or something like guys start their careers.
Yeah.
Take me through that quickly in a couple minutes, if you will.
I'm old enough that back in the day, if you're going to have influence in business, a lot of it went up through marketing to CMO to CEO. So got into brand on the Levi's and then Clorox in the Bay Area. Then went out to New York at Colgate Palmolive, did a stint there, came back to the Bay Area and got into the agency side of the business. A couple of different runs, ended up with my own shop, built that and sold it. And that's, and I can go from there, Todd, if you want, because that's how I ended up.
Yeah, because you sold it to SGK.
Sold it to SGK. I was actually shocked at the time, built out their global offering. So built out a domestic offering first in the US and Canada. We had a couple shops up in Canada. And then through acquisition in Greenfield, built up Asia, and then went and built up Europe in the Netherlands and Paris, where we did some core acquisitions, and then also did some greenfield out of London. So built a global network for working with primarily CPG brands, really in new product innovation, brand creation, and then the marketing side of it as well there. And then that really became an integration and growth effort. And then from there, got to know the team at Quad and Joel Quadracci specifically and his COO at the time. And they knew Clarence Schock and knew about the Schock story before I took over that role and became president. And then we ended up selling it. I should finish up the SGK story. We ended up selling that to Matthews out of Pittsburgh. And when we did that transaction, I decided to go and do something else. I didn't want to go with the SGK business down to Pittsburgh, even though there was a good role for me there. And got to know Joel Quadracci, great company, great person, great culture. And at that point, wanted to do more transformation, acquisition, integration. So did that with another public company because SGK was public. And did that with Joel and Quad, great leadership team, great board, and put together a agency offering that sat on top of Quad's really strong client roster. So acquired Rise Interactive, acquired Periscope, which is now Betty out of Minneapolis, and a couple of other small shops, some great talent, built out a data offering, and built that up before taking my current role with Trinity Hunt.
So I want to talk about, what it's like in the mentality that you need to have to be successful inside the larger organization that acquires your business. But if I can do that in a sequence, how does a group like so Trinity Hunt is a group we're familiar with. We've done a couple of transactions with them. We've actually sold a couple businesses with the folks at Agital. How does it happen that a private equity group finds a guy like you with the pedigree that you had? How did that whole thing come about?
It was through traditional channels that I got to know about THP and the specific offering. I was excited about Agital because the original thesis was to get into the SMB and mid-market and start thinking about how to reinvent marketing for that area, right? So you've got the nascent exposure of new technologies that eventually became the mass acceleration around AI, but a very mature marketplace. And the way that I was introduced to the opportunity of at least the original thesis of Agital was to accelerate into some of the lower end digital marketing side of the field and do it in a more innovative way, but be nimble, be smart, and take existing assets, complement them with great talent, and really create a new model for how SMB and mid-market should market. And then with the majority of those dollars going towards the digital side, it just seemed like an exciting time to work in a smaller organization with a great growth potential with smaller clients. Because at SGK and at Quad, those are big enterprise with big budgets. And with that, there's this, you sacrifice speed at times. And I saw an opportunity in the market to better service the SMB space with a real nimble, smart, highly efficient offering, which is what we're building at Agital right now.
Do you remember the specific things that captured your attention about Agital and about Trinity Hunt? Because I know you must have had plenty of choice about what you were going to do next. Why did you believe that Trinity Hunt would be successful? Was there anything inside of Agital where you said, "Wow, this is a great insight that I think they'll be successful with"?
That's a great question. First off on the offering side, inside of the acquired, so there were seven businesses that were already acquired when I got involved with Agital. Two core businesses did, I thought, two things extremely well. And there were some of the largest acquisitions that happened inside of the Agital prior to my arrival. First there was a proven business development engine in one that was very good all the way from, top of funnel, initial prospect identification, through conversion of MAL to SAL, SAL down to SOW and deal. And they had a good rhythm to it, and they had a good go-to-market and business development engine, which is always important in any business. But when you're in SMB, the churn is just so much higher. Yeah. And you got to make sure your CAC ratio, because your CLV is always going to be shorter. So you got to make sure that your cost of new customer acquisition and the science around that's really tight. There was a business that did that extremely well in the initial phases of Agital. The other element that was critical to me being excited about the opportunity was there was the early application of technology, specifically some AI tool sets that become really, I believe, foundational in how businesses should think about their online presence especially as that correlates to online spend. And there was a very solid SEO acquisition early on in the Agital portfolio compilation that I felt was doing things more progressively. And because they were part of a a private equity group like Trinity Hunt, they were getting from idea to MVP to commercialization so much faster than I had seen before.
Yeah.
And that got me really excited because I knew there were things that I wanted to do, but they either couldn't get to scale fast enough or I couldn't commercialize them fast enough, in a bigger construct. And that's no one's fault. It's just the way that it works. Whereas being able to do it in a private company for a private equity group like Trinity Hunt that really empowers their CEOs, got me really excited. So those were the two things: really strong business development engine that we're still working on, and product development agility in one of the other businesses that got me very excited. They were agile. They were also in the right space. I think that with the offering we have, and specifically in the Go Fish business, we're able to rethink how SMB, mid-market, and eventually enterprise should think about the foundational aspects of their content so that they can have a more consistent presence and can spend their marketing dollars more effectively and efficiently if they follow our roadmap and framework on how to build and manage content. And a lot of that came through the SEO roots of Go Fish.
And at Agital, are you going to maintain that as a house of brands or as a single branded house?
Great question. It is an agency collective. So we are not a traditional holdco where we are going to pit our businesses against each other occasionally. I've never been a fan of that. Quite frankly, when I was on the client side, I despised it. Agital is behind the scenes connector of resources and filler of gaps. Inside of Agital, we've consolidated from 7 market-facing brands to 3. All of the media businesses and the majority of what I would call the traditional brand strat sits inside of Go Fish Digital. We have a great B2B and B2G offering in a business called REQ that also does fully integrated campaigns. But think of it as world-class B2B, B2G PR with an integrated wrapper. They can basically do from start to finish on the marketing side. And then we also have WDG, which is one of the best UI, UX, web experience companies that I've worked with, and they're primarily in WordPress. So I've got a high-end UI, UX web experience for clients that need more immersive experiences online. Our PR business, B2G, business to government, business to business, very focused on those areas. And then I've got Go Fish that's got really your integrated, fantastic digital marketing capabilities across the board, knowing that majority of SMB and mid-market, their spends are going to be more on the digital space than like traditional linear offline.
And just saying, I got an REQ trophy there and a WDG trophy there. So proud of both of those.
Many trophies.
Yes, I'm certainly proud that was able to work on that with John and the team to make that work. When you do a transaction, it's interesting, Eric, because you can give me a view from both sides. It is oftentimes important. Some entrepreneurs come in strong and don't want to play well with others. Some, particularly when they roll forward a big chunk, want to make sure that they continue to win and like having more resources and a bigger stage. How do you now, I'm going to take it both ways, please. As the entrepreneur from when you sold, for example, into SGK, what advice would you give to guys doing a transaction to say, here's the mindset that will help you be successful inside of a larger organization? So if you answer that, then I'll come with my second one.
From a founder perspective, right? The mindset of the individual selling.
What should that person be aware of or thoughtful of?
Yeah, I think this is critical because you really got to you've got to have a clear answer to this during diligence. Otherwise, in the services industry, you're going to get your valuation wrong. Because if you're not appropriately assessing the value that the founders are going to deliver to the integrated offering, then how do you know what to pay for what you're acquiring if the talent's going to leave? And I think that's a really important piece to it, and something that I learned early on when I sold my business. It was very clear to me when I came into it, it was shock at the time, the value I could bring and also the reward I wanted from those efforts post-acquisition was really clear with Clarence Schock, David Schock at the time. And then when I went about acquisition, some of them were more strategic focused, some of them were more creative focused. But during diligence and during deal negotiation was really clear on where those leaders would add value to SGK when they came in, and never did a we'll figure it out later. It was always really clear, I need you in this role, or I need you running this region. And I like being extremely prescribed, because then you can put a value against that role and you can put OKRs against it and start measuring impact from the day one post transaction. And it also allows the acceleration of change management from the thing that made you valuable to acquire to the way you now deliver value as an individual to us that just bought you.
Because it's a different ecosystem, right?
Totally. And then some of it in the diligence is assessing, are those people going to be comfortable working in a larger environment? Or is that something where over time they get, they manage themselves out, or we manage them out because it's just not the right fit, but they've got the talent and the team. So a lot of that, I spent a lot of time on that during diligence.
Is there specific questions you would encourage somebody to ask from the acquirer so that they get a truthful answer around the role they're going to fit?
Yeah, I come in more specifically around with scenarios, because in the process of how they built the business or what they did before they started their own agency, they're going to almost self-prescribe lanes of value into the acquiring business. So if they're a strat person, or if they're creative, or they're a generalist, an ops person, I tend to come with 2 to 3 different ways for them to port to our company, whether that's with Agital now or with Quad or with SGK, and kind of walk through that, give them permission to share what they want to do really and what their aspirations are. Because a lot of people, at least that I've acquired, they've gone on to do other cool things after we've done the acquisition, or some of them are still with SGK and some of them are still with Quad.
Yeah.
It's a lot of it's just being honest and talking through how you think that's going to work.
And now being on your side, that which we just were discussing now is really a critical component to the success of an integration.
Yes.
What do you look for? Mannerisms, triggers, keywords, things of that nature to let you know this guy or woman will be a great fit, or it raises a red flag?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, people have gotten pretty good on the communication side. A lot of it's what did they do before? And have they ever, some of it is, have they ever worked in a larger organization? And do they actually know are they actually capable of moving through different companies with different sizes? People that have always been in smaller organizations and have, kind of popped from small agency to start another one, small agency to start another one, is just a very different performance characteristics than someone who's worked in big industry, big bureaucracy, still gets some success, but then chooses to go work in mid or start small. They're just going to have a more mature organizational agility than someone who's just done small the whole time. And that's fine. In those instances, I would look to just be honest with them about, I think success for people like that are areas that are easy to more cordoned off, like a product development group that doesn't need to engage the bigger bureaucracy on a regular basis. But expecting somebody who's worked in a 30 to 60 person shop their entire life to be able to come in and run an operation that's got 400 employees to it, I think it's not fair to them, and it's not fair to the business to expect them to be good at that. There's a reason why they haven't done that before.
Yeah, an entrepreneur is a unique talent, and I think larger organizations can greatly benefit from taking advantage and utilizing that talent. But it's got to be done under the right set of circumstances, right?
Totally agree.
So at Agital, how do you try to focus that attention and harvest and grow that capability set without letting the entrepreneur run amok and causing havoc?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And we're purposeful in assessing, where those talents are, because a lot of the people, at least on the product side right now, it's very much a test and learn environment, and test and learn operates at a different pace than client growth and year over year client engagement and service spread. So what I've learned works really well is to create those work streams where people can do more test and learn or aggressive application of thinking. And then right now, the world of MVPs in the media space, and do those outside of normal client deliverables and normal client management. So it's truly laboratory-like, where we have teams that are developing the next phase of what we will eventually bring into our client portfolio. But they're doing it, I don't want to say off the grid, but there isn't a lot of communication between the two. We'll share roadmaps, it's almost like software development. And we'll show roadmaps of where we're going, but how do we get there? And the speed in which we can get there isn't always very definitive, because I want that team to feel agile and be able to operate without a lot of construct except for solving specific client or industry needs and doing it in a fashion that lets us get an MVP to test as quickly as possible. And then right behind that, once we recognize it's worth it, a commercialization that allows us to do it at scale. At that point, we'll take it back to the portfolio of clients. And that team really operates on its own. They report out once a month to the company, maybe twice a month. Otherwise, they're off doing their work. And I think that's by far the best. I think that's necessary in this market. Trying to do it inside client asks or do it inside of a project that might have come up, I think that just takes too long. I think our team is pretty certain on where the market's going, so we're developing products for where we see the puck going to, versus waiting for clients to ask or for an opportunity to show itself. We're kind of creating our own opportunities at this point.
Yeah. I want to get into, I think when you came on board, Trinity came out of the gate pretty hot with a few acquisitions right away, and then you've been working to consolidate those. I want to talk about what's on your list for acquisition and capability set. But before we do that, I'm curious, because when you were at Quad and you were at SGK, you did acquisitions.
Yes.
What's it like doing it for a large public company acquisition versus a nimble and smaller private equity backed company? What are the biggest attributes? What are the biggest benefits and the biggest challenges to something like that? The differences.
At SGK, we complemented and then transformed a business that was downstream into one that was more upstream. So SGK did a great job at building a portfolio of CPG companies, but more on the production side of the world versus the agency side of the world. So, came into a business that was $2.5–300 million and helped to get to north of $400 million in building out services that were complementary to what they did before. At Quad, at the time it was just under $4 billion of a big print organization, very well run, in an industry that was consolidating around. It's a media form, right? That was getting smaller, and built out through acquisitions and really smart talent grabs, an offering that again could complement that portfolio of business. So both of those instances, there was runway. I had clear plans that I had put in front of leadership as well as the board in what I wanted to do and how long it would take. And they were transformational efforts that both took roughly 10 years that I worked and, did that to varying degrees of success. We ended up selling SGK to another public company, and Quad's got now a very strong offering and non-print. So there's runway there. There's plans. They're big. They're both publicly traded. There's investment that can go into what I wanted to do. Budgets that I knew if I put the right profile of M&A opportunities in front of the budget, I would be able to do it. Both groups were great about it, and it worked. It worked. We transformed those businesses. And now, at Agital and with private equity, a lot of it is around the thesis, but the runway is a lot shorter because the businesses aren't as big, and the impact, the time to impact is it's truncated, right? When we create a thesis and we put together the ideas behind what will work and what will work and what won't work, it's not quarters and years like it was in SGK and Quad. It's weeks and months at the size that we are. And that's the exciting part about it. Yes, it's short, but also our time to innovation, our time to market, our time to commercialization is also really truncated. So it's also kind of a very quick test. Is our strategy right? Are our beliefs correct? And can we build and commercialize as fast as we thought we could? And very quickly in months and quarters, really weeks and months than in quarters and years like you would in which I like. It's an exciting time. There's a lot of disruption in the online market right now. And I feel like we're in a position to be able to help recraft the way brands think about presenting their brands and doing engagements online if we hustle over the next 24 months.
And what capability set do you think you need to hustle? And maybe just before that, you'd mentioned before about you think you got a pretty good idea on where the puck is going. Where do you see it going 2 years from now, 3 years from now?
I think the siloed nature, I call it siloed and calcified. I think a lot of the siloed nature that happened with media spend online is similar to what happened with media spend offline before offline got crushed by online, right? So coming up, you had out of home, you had, TV, you had broadcast, you had print, and they got very specific and very mature and really boring. And not very measurable because everything got so calcified. Then online comes in. And online now, it's similar calcifications happen. You have SEO, you got paid, you got earned and owned. They've gotten there's agencies in each of them. What's happening with where Gemini and where Perplexity and where OpenAI are going is they're actually reconstructing the way that we as general consumers or users will get information back. It's better information. It's more informed, and the way that they're feeding results is taking in a broader array of information than how search results used to be compiled. And again, for me, it all gets back to clients' content and how it's organized and how it's developed is foundational. Because that content's going to inform your paid campaign. It's going to inform, obviously, the way you have your owned. But it's also more informed with earned and obviously your SEO. All of those are going to be reformulated into how we're going to be engaging the way that GEO evolves and gives us information that we then act on as consumers. And we're at the foundational level of that at Agital. We're working on how are these elements being newly thought through, conjoined, and then fed back through inquiry results, regardless of the platform. And it's going to give us permission to become more holistic marketing partners than an SEO shop or a paid shop or a PR shop. Real marketing is now fully integrated again, all the way back to the Mad Men days where clients need help marketing. I feel that's coming in the next 2 years versus I need an SEO shop.
And when you look at all of that and you look at your offering, do you see a weakness or an opportunity to lean into one area of that you would consider as part of your future acquisition strategy?
Yeah, yes. I think that, and because I think clients, especially mid-market, are going to be looking for integrated offerings versus 7 different agencies. We're great on the SEO paid, more of the traditional digital side of the business. I think business consulting and the ability for client services to be not only great at delivering the SOW in which you were engaged, but also being able to consult with the clients across not only their marketing needs, but even other elements of their business needs. I think those are the agencies that are going to win. The ones that are delivering the obvious value of why they're having the phone call with the client, but also creating such connectivity to the client's ultimate business results. And I tell my team that they're the agency, they're the partners the clients call up on Saturday morning when they couldn't sleep on Friday night. Right? And if you can't sleep on Friday night, that's a tough night. But you want to be the person the client calls to talk through what's going on with their business, even if it isn't immediately in where your service line to that client. And that's the big growth area, Todd, for us is ongoing, is how do we mature that in our client service team?
Yeah. Do you think the marketing agency has earned the right to be that first call Saturday morning?
I think they did back in the day. I think it got replaced by other partners that created great value,
right? The BCGs, the Accentures, and the rest. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, the consultancies, I think, quite frankly, even some of the platform partners, I think there's just been others that have done that. I think certainly there's an opportunity there for the right clients. And I want us to be the guy. I want Agital and Go Fish, RQ, WDG. In some instances, we already are those people.
Yeah.
But I want to, that to me is a true measure of success. If you're the go-to phone call when your client has business questions.
And do you have a suspicion around the category that your next acquisition would be in? Will it be business consulting or would it be something in the marketing realm?
It would be probably a bit of both. I think an agency that is tech forward, and I'm just going to leave it at that, but also has the ability to show service growth through adjacent budgets in a client. So they're able to go in because clients are still going to want to buy on a product basis for a bit. But over time, clients are then going to learn the acceleration of market impact by conjoining adjacent budgets in a way that they haven't been able to because of procurement and everything else. They're just going to realize they're going to win by putting those budgets together. That's what I'm looking for from an agency perspective right now is, are you able to go in and deliver value against a prescribed solution, and how quickly can you then cross-sell into those other budgets and then create more effective engagement with that client, because you're not just through a narrow window anymore. You're taking on bigger responsibility and still growing the client's growth. That's one thing I would look for. And then there's specific industry expertise that we're looking for as well. So it's the ability to get into new clients and grow effectively. Specific around some core industries that we're excited about.
The core industry.
We through the portfolio, I think there's a lot of around location-based marketing that we're currently doing that I think could be exciting. I think geographies, locations could create great opportunities going forward. And then we've got footholds in telco, financial services, and healthcare. The way that we're developing our technology, I'm liking more complexity to the offering, even where there's, like in healthcare or finance, where there's more rigidity to the way that clients think about their marketing. I think we're going to be a great fit for those as we grow the portfolio. And then there's some others that aren't quite as important. But in healthcare, you're going to find specific healthcare agencies, and that'd be something we might be interested in. Same with financial services. You tend to find groups that kind of overly focus in those areas.
Sure do. And I will say this: it'll be wonderful to connect in a couple of years and to see the progress that you've made there. I think making progress to become that Saturday morning phone call consultant or brand would certainly distinguish you amongst the groups that are out there. So it'll be wonderful to see the progress that you make. Your contact information will be in the show notes. So anyone that needs to be able to reach out to you, I know you're a very busy guy. People can reach out to me. My contact's also in the show notes. But Eric, I knew that you brought a unique resume to the podcast, and it was wonderful to have you be on and to share as openly as you did. So thank you for being a guest, and I'll look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, Todd, really appreciate it. And yeah, if there's anyone in your viewer sphere that wants to reach out, please do. And appreciate the time. It's been a great session. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
All right, take care, Todd.
Thanks for listening to the Second Bite podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.